All right. So, if you caught my post earlier, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a series on music theory for the next little while. I'm also, with this first stream, bear with me if there's any issues because I'm experimenting with some new technology that I haven't really used before. In fact, I'm going to try and see if I can open up the chat. Well, I don't remember what it's called. Okay, we'll leave that alone for the time being. I'm going to open up the chat.
Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah, mute.
There we go. Okay. So I'm going to be going through some real basic music theory to begin with. We're going to get advanced as we go. And again, this first session, I'm really just trying to deliver some information to you, but also make sure that all this tech works. Because I got a few things going on. I've got obviously this camera angle here with my little music school. Where is it? The logo over there somewhere. And I've got a second camera angle here for some of the stuff that I'm going to demonstrate using the keyboard for visual reference. And I've also got I've got a few other things that I can play with as well, but we'll see how it goes. So if you got questions, I gotta see if I can figure out what this chat thing is here. Oh, here it is, chat. Let's see, what is it called? Restream. Restream chat is what it's supposed to be called. Oh well, okay. I'll leave that alone for now, and we'll figure the rest of that out later. It looks like we got some. Oh, I see here. Okay. And by the way, just for those who are curious, I'm using a service called Restream.io to stream this to Facebook and to Periscope and to YouTube at the same time. So the thing that I was looking for is there's a chat program that allows me to see the chat comments come in from all those different sources all in one spot. So it doesn't look like there's anyone on Periscope or YouTube right now anyway. So I'll just focus my attention on Facebook. And we'll deal with it from there. So, okay, let's do this thing. I guess the way I want to start this series off, and I'm going to probably do one of these every day or every couple of days. So I'll try my best to let you all know when it's going to happen so that you can tune in live. And of course, you can always catch the replay later as well. But what I want to do is really start from square one. JF says the stream quality is great. Awesome. Nice. So right from square one. Okay. So when you're thinking about music, now a lot of you probably have played some music. Maybe you play an instrument, guitar, piano, whatever, sing, karaoke, doesn't matter. You've experienced the joy of playing some music. And I have a lot of friends who fall into that category. And a lot of people, however, never really sort of started to get into the idea of the fact that music is a language, just like the English I'm speaking to you right now, and how to actually learn that language and become proficient in that language so that you can speak more eloquently. If you think about it, if you learn a handful of words in, say, Spanish, for example, like I know a handful of words in Spanish or French for that matter. You can speak very basically, but it's very clunky. And if you parallel that to music, it's kind of like if you're just picking up the guitar and you've learned an E minor and an A minor chord, and that's pretty much all you got, and you can kind of barely play them, then you can start to play music. You can start to speak the language of music, but not very eloquently, right? And as you start to learn more, your vocabulary expands. So you're learning more chords, more shapes and patterns on the guitar, or scales and chords on the piano, or whatever the instrument is that you play. As you start to expand your vocabulary, then you start to be able to have more in-depth conversations and communicate more interesting and intricate ideas with that language that you're speaking. Same applies to music. However, every language not only has its vocabulary, but it also has rules and cultural ways that people put words together. For example, if you go to Quebec, they speak a different kind of French than in France, for example. It's still French, but they have culturally different ways of saying things, different the dialects and different. And then, of course, you get into slang, right? And lingo and things of that nature. So there's a lot of layers of complexity that actually add to your ability to communicate extremely eloquently with whatever the language is that you speak. There's also who you're speaking to, for example. Who you're speaking to is going to impact or influence the way in which you speak, right? The same thing applies to music. So you can study music for years and years and years and keep going deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of learning the system. And it looks like my camera flashed a little bit there. Hopefully everything's good still. If my camera freezes, by the way, which it does from time to time, I just got to unplug it and plug it back in, and we're back in business. And hopefully it doesn't wreck the stream, okay? So where do we start when it comes to learning the language of music? Well, for starters, I typically like to explain what components, what things make music, regardless of the genre, the style. There are certain things that make all music, and three of them, in fact. They are rhythm, which is simply when a sound happens, rhythmic patterns and beats and things like that. You have melody, which is a note followed by another note followed by another note. So the thing you might sing or whistle would be your melody. And then you have harmony, which is a combination of notes, of pitches, played simultaneously, and the way in which they interact with each other, the kind of feeling they generate when those sounds are heard at the same time. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So if I go to the piano here, if I play a single note, that would be, you would think of that as melody, because I played one note, then I played another note, and I played another note. I could sing that. Da, 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 right? That's a melody I could sing. However, if I played those notes at the same time, you now have harmony, okay? And if I take that harmonic combination of notes and I alter and change them a little bit, then you start to be able to change the way the harmony is affecting the listener. For example, if I take this chord here and I take this middle note and change it to there, I generate a different mood. If I take this middle note and change it to there, and also this top note and change it to here, that harmonic relationship is totally different mood or feeling than the first one I started with. Maybe I'll take this top one and raise it up to here, and it will sound like this. Okay? Again, that combination of notes has a completely different feeling or mood. Okay? So just to recap, all music, regardless of genre, is composed of only three things. Rhythm, which is when the sounds happen. Melody, which is one note followed by another, followed by another. So a little... right, is melody. And then you have some harmony, which is the sound of notes played together. Okay? So now that we've got that established and out of the way, that's the baseline. That's what it's all about. So each of those three components of music you can study and expand and expand and expand upon. Right? You've got crazy depth to just studying harmony. You've got crazy depth to just studying rhythm. So today I want to talk about primarily, well, I guess it's harmony and melody. Thank you. Bottle of water. That'll come in handy. I have a beer over there too, but I try to keep that off camera. But okay, so where do we start? So the place I like to start is with what's referred to as key or key signature. And the best way I can think of to explain key signature is kind of like the dialect or accent or specific language that you're speaking in at the moment. You've probably heard some of these terms thrown about, we're in the key of C, or we're in the key of E flat, or whatnot. Well, to somebody who understands music theory, that means a whole lot. When somebody says we're in the key of G, that doesn't just mean I can play a G chord on my guitar and hopefully it sounds good. It means a whole myriad of other things that are all built from what key are we in, okay? So I figured today would be a good topic of conversation to start with, which is how do we understand key? What is it? And how do we understand what notes make up a key and what chords are in that key and what does it mean? If you say I'm in the key of G, what does that mean? Okay, I got my instrument. I know a whole bunch of chords. I know a few scales. Like, what does it mean when you're in the key of G? Okay, so that's where I wanted to start today. So the simplest way to, I guess, to begin this conversation is just by recognizing what notes are in a key and what does it sound like. So it's something you're all familiar with, which is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So if we look at the keyboard again here, you can see if I play from this C right here, and I play just up to the next C, which is right here, you can listen to what that sounds like. Oops, let's try that again with one note at a time. Okay, you hear that familiar sound of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Everyone's probably recognizes that. It's a real standard thing. It's standard because it is the fundamental basis of all Western music theory, pretty much. If you go out east to India, Asia, places like that, they have a whole different system of music. We're not going to get into those weeds right now. But that do, re, mi sound is the basis of basically all the rest of the music theory in Western music, that is, that we can dig into as far down the rabbit hole as you care to go. It all starts from do, re, mi. So what you'll notice, though, if I played, what I played there was from C to C, okay? And I just played all the white keys on the piano in a row. I'm going to, somebody's messaging me. You guys, try not to private message me right now because the sound's going to come through and whatnot. But leave your comments on the stream instead. It's that way everyone can participate. Okay, so that relationship of notes is very specific and particular. And let me show you exactly what I mean by that. If you look at the keyboard, and the reason why I have a keyboard here is because it's easiest to visualize what's happening on a keyboard because all the notes are laid out in a row and they never repeat themselves. You have multiple octaves, like you'll have a low C and a high C and another one up top, right? But that particular note right there, that particular pitch does not repeat itself anywhere else on the instrument. So everything is laid out nicely and makes it visually easy to understand what's going on, okay? So what I want you to notice is that when I played from C to C with all those white keys, you'll notice I skipped all of these black keys. But they are also a fundamental component of the 12-tone system of music that we have here in the West, okay? So if I played all of the notes, it would be referred to as a chromatic scale. It would sound like this. Okay? And if you were to count them, I won't make you do it, I'll just tell you, there's 12 of them before you get back to the same note you started on, okay? So we have a 12-tone system of music that we work with, but you'll notice when I played the do, re, mi and left these notes out, there's only 7 of them before I get back to C. So the idea with a key signature is to figure out which 7 notes am I pulling out of the entire 12 that we have to choose from in order to make a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do sounding scale, no matter what note I start on, okay? There's 2 ways to look at this. There's probably more than 2, but there's 2 ways that I find fairly easy to understand, one more so than the other, to understand how this works, okay? And let me break it down for you real quick. I'll show you the keyboard again. When I'm playing, if you think of from this note to the very next key beside it, which would be this black key, to the very next key beside it, which would be this white key, the very next key here, the very next key here, the very next key there, you'll notice there's no black key in the middle, so that the very next key is there. That interval from here to the very next note is referred to as a semitone or a half step, okay? If I go from here and I skip this one and land on this one instead, that's referred to as a full step or a whole tone. Okay, this is going to become important in a minute because you'll look at when I play this C major scale, when I move from the first note of the scale to the second note of the scale, I've actually moved a full tone because I've skipped this one in the middle. When I move from the second note to the third note in the scale, I'm also moving a full tone because I've skipped this one in the middle. flow with me for a sec. This will make sense in a minute. When I move from the third note to the fourth note, there is no key in the middle. So that was a semitone or a half step. When I move from the fourth note to the fifth note, that's a full step to the sixth note, a full step to the seventh note, and then a half step to get back to the root that I started on. Okay? So that pattern is root, and then whole step or tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Okay? Now, that's important to understand because that pattern never changes. In fact, I'm going to write this down right now real quick. So we've got tone. Well, it starts with the root. So I'm going to circle that. The note you decide to start with. Tone, a semitone, a tone, a tone, a tone, and a semitone. Okay? This here is the interval relationship between every note in a typical major scale. So what that means is if you start on any note, it doesn't matter which note you start on, and you apply that spacing to it. And by the way, guitar players, that just means a semitone is from one fret to the very next, and a tone, a full step, is from one fret, skip a fret to the following one. Okay? So if you're a guitar player or a bass player, you can still apply this theory. Okay? Now let's find out if this is correct, and let me prove it to you real quick. Okay? So check this out. So if let's say we start on, let me bring the keyboard down a little bit here. Let's say we start on an E. Okay? If I just play all the white keys like I did when I was playing in the key of C, it sounds like this. Now, for those of you with a discerning ear, that does not sound like a major scale. Let me play it again for you. Okay? Now, let me play it again this time, applying this interval spacing between the notes. So the root was my E. My next note is going to be up a tone, which would be, there's the semitone, there's the tone, okay? My next note would be a tone again, there's the semitone, there's the tone, okay? And then a semitone, and then a tone, a tone, a tone, and a semitone. Let's see what it sounds like. So I got root, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Listen to that one more time. All of a sudden, et voila, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's a major scale, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. By the way, feel free to comment. I'm not sure if I'm seeing everybody's comments. I do have the Facebook stream up here, and I'm seeing comments there and people who have joined. But I'm not sure if I'm seeing, because we've shared it to a few different places on Facebook. So hopefully all the comments come in one spot. But if you've got questions, throw them in the comments, and I'll try my best to adjust them. So what we've just discovered here with the aid of the keyboard is what is the intervallic relationship. Interval just means the space. What is the space from note 1 to note 2 to note 3 to note 4? What's the space between them that always produces a major scale, okay? And in this case, you start with your root, you move 2 tones and then a semitone, and then three tones and then a semitone, okay? And let's try that with one more key here. Let's look at the keyboard one more time. Let's try, let's try D, okay? So again, if I play D with all the white keys, then you get that sound, which is not necessarily bad, but it's not a major scale, okay? It's not the key of D, all right? But if I apply this again here, we've got 2 tones, so 2 tones and a semitone, 3 tones and a semitone, okay? So here we go, root, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Let me do that one more time. And there you have it, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, okay? So, by the way, feel free, let me put the camera on here for a second. Feel free to write that down if you want to. It's like I say, put the root first, because the root is just where you start. And then it's when you start moving away from the root that you start applying the spacing. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. JF, makes total sense. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. It's good to know, because like I say, if you don't get feedback, you don't know if you're making any sense. So I appreciate that. So, by the way, feel free to try this on your instrument. It will always work. That is just the formula for a major scale, okay? Now, one thing you'll notice is that whenever I played the major scale starting from one of these other notes, obviously I had to include some of the black keys on the piano, some of the sharps or flats as they're referred to as oftentimes on the piano, right? So every key has a specific number and order of sharps and flats, okay? And if that's confusing right now, bear with me for a second. It will make sense in a moment, okay? For example, the key of G, I know because I've studied this stuff before, has one sharp in it, and it happens to be F. So that's what I mean. How many sharps are in the key, and which ones are they, right? So if we look at the keyboard again, this is a G right here, okay? For those of you who are not familiar with the keyboard, that's a G. So we had C, D, E, F, G. There's our G right there, okay? So if my theory is correct, then I said that the key of G has one sharp and it's F. So that would mean that if I play G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, it should sound like a major scale. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, if I'm on a note right here, the sharp is the note directly to its right on the keyboard, and the flat would be directly to its left. So this is a D. That would be a D sharp. This would be a D flat, okay? If I was here, this is an E, that would be an E flat right there. What you'll notice there, just as an aside, is that this key has two names. It's D sharp, but it's also E flat, okay? So try not to let that confuse you too much. It just means, the sharp and the flat just means, it looks like my camera froze. It just means that it's either one semitone higher or one semitone lower, okay? So D, D sharp, D, D flat. C, C sharp. C, C flat, which is also known as B, okay? So when you hear sharp and flat, there, the camera's back, okay, good. When you hear sharp and flat, all it means is one semitone higher, that's sharp, one semitone lower is flat, okay? So we're gonna just talk about sharps for now. So what I said before is the key of G has one sharp, and it happens to be F. So let's prove that theory. So here's the G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, and let's listen to the sound of it. Sounds like do, re, mi to me. And if I don't make that F sharp, it sounds like this. And you can hear that one note just sounds, oh, that was unexpected. That didn't sound quite right. Didn't quite match that familiar do, re, mi sound, okay? So what do I mean by all of this? Or what's the point of all of this? This is how you understand a key signature. So for example, the key of G, the key signature of G is one sharp, F. The key signature of D, for example, is two sharps, F and C. Let's prove that. Here's a D right here. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Let's listen to it. Sounds like do, re, mi. If I don't play those notes sharp, it sounds like this. And again, there's nothing wrong with that sound, right? It's just not the key of D. It's not D major anymore, okay? It's D something else. And I'm not going to confuse you with any of that stuff later. That's for much further down the road, okay? So point is that in order to start to begin on your journey of understanding music theory, step one is understanding A, what a key is, and B, what each key is. So D is two sharps, F and C. A is three sharps, F, C, and G. E is four sharps, F, C, G, and D. And there's a way to know that. There's a reason why I know that. It's not just, I'm not like a Rain Man or nothing, savant. It's just, there's a theory to it, okay? And that's what I want to break down for you now. So this is basically, the first thing we covered, the tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, is a very simple way, if you have your instrument in your hand or your piano in front of you or whatever, to just figure out just one step at a time what are the notes that are in a scale. That's just a real rudimentary way to do that. If you want to start to understand the theory, though, and start to dive into the theory of it all, then you're going to have to understand this second way of figuring out that same information, okay? So here's how it works. It's something that's referred to. You may have heard of it before. You may have had a music teacher that tried to teach it to you, and it may have made no sense to you. But I'm going to break this down for you in a way that is going to make sense to you. Okay, it's what's referred to as the cycle of fifths, or the circle of fifths. Call it what you want. There's also the circle of fourths, but we'll save that for another conversation. Once you understand the circle of fifths, the circle of fourths is just one step different. It's real easy to understand. But what is the circle of fifths? Well, what its purpose is to tell you how many sharps are in a key. Let me show you how it works. Okay, so it's called the circle of fifths. So we're going to start with a circle, okay? So let's get a circle going on here. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. We're going to divide this circle up like a clock that only goes to 7 o'clock. And the reason why we only go to 7 o'clock is because there are only 7 notes in a scale, in a key, okay? So we got 0, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And I'm just going to number those. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Pardon my penmanship is not my forte, so bear with me on that, okay? Now this is called the circle of fifths, so I'm just going to label that right here in the middle. Fifths, and it's for finding out how many sharps are in a key. And a sharp is like a hashtag for the youngins, okay? That's how you write it, okay? So the circle of fifths is a circle divided into from 0 to 7. And what we need to do is we need to figure out what letters, what notes go at each of these spaces. And basically the way it works is whatever letter ends up here at 3 o'clock is the key that has 3 sharps in it, okay? Whatever letter ends up here at 6 o'clock is the key that has 6 sharps in it, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So the whole point of the circle is to figure out how many of those black keys or whatever, those sharps, are in the key. That's step 1. And I'll explain how that works in just a moment. But I want you to also understand the broader scope. There's a second step. The second step is, okay, so A has 3 sharps in it. Well, what notes are sharp? We don't know yet. That's what step 2 is for. And I'll explain that in just a second. But let's go back to the circle for a moment. Okay, if you remember, when I was on the keyboard here and I played the C scale, it sounded like a major scale without using any sharps. Okay? The reason why is because it matches that tone, tone, semitone pattern and just so happens to avoid all of the black keys in doing so. So the key of C is the key with 0 sharps in it, okay? So we're going to put C right there at noon, at 0, okay? And by the way, C is always the 0 key, whether you're talking about sharps or flats. We're going to save that flat conversation for another day, but C is always the 0 key. It's the only key it's the only major scale that has 0 sharps or flats in it. I actually posted a little funny meme in the TechMuse community yesterday or whenever it was about that. But feel free to go in the TechMuse community and on Facebook and check that out, have a little giggle. And if you haven't joined us there, by all means, request an invite to the TechMuse community, it's called, on Facebook, and we'll welcome you in with open arms. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time, music production, music marketing, and all of that, okay? So, back to the story. So the key of C has 0 sharps in it. It's all white keys on the piano. Now the reason why this is called the circle of fifths is because we count in fifths to figure out what each subsequent key is supposed to be. And let me explain what I mean. So C, 0 sharps. If we want to find out what key has only 1 sharp in it, what key is at 1 o'clock on the dial, then we count up 5 from C. Don't forget to include the C when you're counting. So you get C, D, E, F, G, okay? And sure enough, the key of G is the key that has 1 sharp in it, which I demonstrated earlier. Here's a G right here. 1 sharp, and you got your do, re, mi sounds, okay? So from there, if we want to find out what the 2 key is, we start from where we just left. We were at G, and we go up 5 more. So we go G, A, B, C, D. And D is the 2 key. Let me demonstrate. Here's a D right here. 1, 2, there it is. Okay? Play that one more time. Okay, so hopefully that is making sense so far. By the way, feel free to shoot a comment in the Facebook live stream here if you got questions, or if I'm talking too fast, I can slow it down a little bit. Okay, So we found C is the 0 key. C, D, E, F, G is the 1 key, which means it has 1 sharp in it. Again, we don't know which one it is yet, or we could figure it out, but we don't know off the top of our heads which one it is yet, but we'll get to that in a second. G, A, B, C, D is the 2 key. D, E, F, G, A is the 3 key. A, B, C, D, E is the 4 key. Again, my penmanship is not my forte. E, F, G, A, B is the 5 key. B, C, D, E, F is the 6 key, and it's actually F sharp, but I'll explain that in a minute. F, G, A, B, C, we've gone all the way back to C again. From C all the way around the circle back to C. This is actually C sharp, but I'll explain that in a minute. Okay? So, hopefully that's making sense. Nico, apparently it's making sense to Nico. Awesome. Nice. Yeah, so this is you've heard, you may have heard of this before, the circle of fifths. What the heck is the circle of fifths? And it sounds all confusing. Well, this is what, oh, it looks like my camera froze again. Hang on. Let me reset that. That's the one bug I haven't figured out how to fix yet with my setup here. But there we go. I just got to unplug it and plug it back in. It comes right back. So, again, this was step 1 of the process, which is how many sharps are in the key, okay? What we don't know yet is which notes are supposed to be sharp. And this is where we get into the second component of this entire system here. This is the last part of it, by the way. So if you understand what we've talked about so far, this next little tiny bit will be no problem. So basically, it's by using a little thing called the order of sharps. Now, the order of sharps is a specific order that the sharps always fall in. So the key of G has 1 sharp, it's F. The key of D has 2 sharps, it's F and C. The key of A has 3 sharps, it's F and C and G. So you see what I'm saying is that the number of the sharps always come in the same order. They always fall in the same order. And music is full of cheesy little rhymes and phrases to help you remember the order of things. Here's another one for you. It goes like this. Let me just write it down here. Okay. Father Charles goes down and ends battle. Okay, this is referred to as the order of sharps. And I'm just going to write that right here. Order of sharps. Okay, so how does this work? Okay, so you want to find out, you want to do something in the key of E. Well, first of all, you need to know what notes are in the key of E. So if we look at our circle of fifths here, we can see that the E falls at 4 o'clock. So the key of E has 4 sharps in it. So what do? We just write the letters down. Just write E all the way through the musical alphabet, which, by the way, I should explain for those of you who might not know. The musical alphabet, of course, only has 7 letters in it, so it goes from A through G, and after G, you're back to A again if you want to keep going. So if you start on an E, you would write E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Now you've written from E to E in the musical alphabet. There's no H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P's in music, okay? That most of you might know that already, but I just figure I don't want to leave any stone unturned here, okay? I want to make sure everyone understands this. Because like I said, it's the basis of everything else that we're going to get into down the road, okay? So check it out. If we want to figure out what notes are in the key of E, step 1, just write the letters out. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and then I'm just going to put another E on the ends just to cap it off, okay? So anyone can do that without having to pull out a pencil and paper. That's just the alphabetical order, the musical alphabet, so G after A is A, right? And then what we do next is we go to step 1. How many? Okay, well, 4, our circle of fifths tells us. Step 2, which ones? Well, the first 4. Father Charles goes down. F, C, G, D. So you grab your pencil, your pen, and you put a sharp sign beside the F. Father Charles goes down. That, my friends, is the E major scale. That is the key of E. Let's prove it. Here's an E. Let me bring the keyboard down a little. See if I can get these both in the picture here. All right. So there's an E right there. Okay. So if my theory is correct, it should be E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. Let's hear what that sounds like. Kaboom. The E major scale. Okay? So hopefully this is making some sense to you. What we've talked about today, and I don't want to go too much further. I want to let this percolate a little bit, because we're going to dig a little deeper probably tomorrow, I imagine. But hopefully this is making sense. If you got questions, put them in the comments. I'm happy to help with any questions that you might have. By the way, even if you're watching the replay, put your questions in the comments, because I'll check back. I'll get notifications on it. Okay? So hopefully this is making sense to you. So what we've covered today is the two ways to figure out what notes are actually in a key, in a major scale. Okay, the major scale is the basis of everything. Now you might be thinking, well, what about a minor scale and a Phrygian scale and a this and a that? You may have heard all kinds of different scales, right? All of those are major scales with a slight twist to them. So if you don't understand how to find the major scale first, you won't understand how to apply the twist to get any other kind of scale that you want. But again, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. We're going to save that for another conversation. Just rest assured that being able to understand and figure out what notes are in any major scale, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, even the sharps and the flats and everything, okay, is where it all begins. So we covered two different ways to do that. One is through intervallic relationships. So this stuff up here. Pick any note, move up a full tone, and then a semitone, 3 more tones, and then a semitone, and you will have the major scale. And then you could just look down at what those notes are, write them on a piece of paper, and you can figure that out. Now, that's cool if you have your instrument handy, right? If you don't have your instrument handy, and this is what I recommend getting your head around, the circle of fifths and the order of sharps, okay? And again, just to recap real quickly, C is always the 0 key, okay? The way in which we find out what key has 1 sharp and then 2 and then 3 and so on is we count up by 5 every time. C, D, E, F, G, boom. G, A, B, C, D, boom. And D, E, F, G, A, boom. And so on and so forth. That's how you find out what letter lands on what spot on the circle, okay? Now, once you understand how many sharps are in a key, then you need to know which ones they are. And that's what this little cheesy little phrase here is for. Father Charles Goes Down and Ends Battle is simply a way to remember that the order that the sharps always come in is F, C, G, D, A, E, B. So if you have 5 sharps, like the key of B right here has 5 sharps in it, which notes are they? F, C, G, D, A. Okay, so if you wanted to write down the B scale, you would go B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and just put another B on the end to cap it off. And then it has 5 sharps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Father Charles Goes Down and. That is the B major scale. Let's prove it. There's a B right there. Okay? So we got B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. Did you hear that? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay? So that is how you determine the key signature. What notes are in the key. And again, the key signature, we hear a lot of these terms thrown around. The key signature just means how many sharps and which ones. That's all. That's all the key signature is, okay? Once you know how many sharps or flats, but we're going to talk about flats another day. Once you know how many sharps are in a key and which ones they are, you can write that down or you can find them on your instrument. And then everything else we're going to talk about spreads out from there. All of the chord theory, harmonic theory, melodic theory, scales and modes and all that funky stuff that you hear people talking about all the time. Maybe you've studied it a bit on your own as well. We're going to get into that. Like I said, today I wanted to start from square 0, in fact, which was what is music? What is music? Rhythm, harmony, and melody. Rhythm is when the sounds happen. Melody is single notes, one at a time, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Harmony is taking a bunch of those notes and playing them at the same time to hear the effect that creates and the feeling that generates in the listener, okay? Those are the 3 aspects of music, the only 3 aspects of music. Everything else is an offshoot of one of those 3 things, okay? And all of it, with the exception of rhythm, harmony and melody, all starts from understanding key signature, which was today's topic of conversation, okay? So Like I said, if you're watching live or even the replay and you have questions, put them in the comments because I'm going to check and I'll answer them. I'll get notifications on Facebook. You all know how that works, right? Feel free to share this around with anyone you think might be interested in learning a little bit about this stuff. Again, today we started at the beginning, but we're going to move forward as we go. So even if you know some of this stuff already, follow along. Make sure you follow along. Join the Tech Muse Academy, the Tech Muse community rather, on Facebook, because we're going to carry on conversations in there as well. And like I say, let people know, spread the love. If you're really digging these lessons, or maybe you're a parent and they're helping your kid, this is your music lesson for the day because everyone's homeschooling right now. Let me know. I want to know how people are enjoying this. And if you really want to buy me a beer or something, there is a paypal.me link in the title. Feel free to chip in a buck or two. Every penny helps because, like I say, I'm a gigging musician and I'm not gigging. So I guess I'm just a musician now. Not a gigging musician. Okay, so feel free to buy me a beer, and we'll take it from there, and everything helps, and I truly appreciate it. And until the next time, what we'll do is, I guess what I'll try to do is make sure that I'll try to make sure I pick a time. Like today was kind of like 7 after 7, kind of random or whatever, but maybe I'll try to get a bit more of a definite schedule going, and we'll continue these conversations and lessons. And like I say, if you know people who are homeschooling right now and want to study music, share them these lessons, and hopefully they can get something out of it at home. Okay. And also, as you can see in the bottom of the screen there, my Music School logo. Music School, this, by the way, is Music School. This is my studio in my home, and this is where I used to have students coming in all day long throughout the weekdays to come and take music lessons with me. Obviously, in light of the current scenario in the world, we're doing everything online now. So that's one of the reasons why I want to really beef up my streaming gear and make sure everything was good and I could have multiple cameras and so on and so forth. But if you or somebody you know is interested in taking private music lessons, guitar, we got the drums in the corner, we got piano, we got bass, I do vocal coaching as well. If you know somebody who's interested, then head on over to musicschool.club. In fact, I'll type it in the comments if I can spell. musicschool.club/register. By the way, as you may notice by my logo there, I spell music school a little different. It's Music's Cool. Okay, so just leave the H out, Music School. There's no H in the word school. Okay, then you'll be fine. But I put a link in the comments, musicschool.club/register, and you can register into my student portal, and then I can get a hold of you, and we can organize a time to jump online, either through Zoom or Skype, or even I've been doing a lot of them through Facebook video chat, and it seems to be working rather well. So feel free to register up for music lessons there, and then we can, like I say, we can get together one-on-one and have private sessions of the instrument of your choice. I'm also teaching, of course, music theory, songwriting, and recorded music production as well. So recording, mixing, and mastering, that kind of thing. So if you or anyone you know is interested in that, head to musicschool.club/register. Register in for a lesson. The first lesson's always on me anyway, and we'll get together online, see how it works. If it works good, we'll continue from there. And this is now my full-time living because I don't gig anymore. I can't go out and play in the bars because they're closed. So, like I said, musicschool.club/register. Spread the word, and I will see you again next time.